There's a theme across what I'm seeing of the projects or buildings or infrastructure here where I'm not on the nicest subway you've ever seen or the nicest high-speed rail you've ever seen or the best bus you've ever seen, but they exist and they work and they serve their purpose. And I feel like that is a theme of the buildings and infrastructure specific.
China has 100,000 miles of 28,000 of which are high-speed rail. We have 137 miles of track, but 0 high-speed rail. You know, that's have been happening over the last 40 years that they've just outbuilt. And of course, very notable thing, you don't have to do land acquisition battles. You don't have to deal with local governments. You don't have to do budget fights and legislation. You don't have environmental law review stuff. You can just build. We went to the Huawei store and saw their trifold phone. You bought your Huawei earbud things. We're seeing these cars that are just like mind blowing. So it's consumer tech. It is just like
consumer tech, robotics,
so much
EVs.
farther than we have.
There's definitely cutting edge on that.
The train that we went on last night was basically the equivalent of us going from LA to Dallas overnight. That's what we did.
It was 14 hours?
Yes.
Technically, we transferred because Brandon...
Let's tell a story.
Is there any reason... All right, so we decided to take a sleeper car. Now, this is kind of quaint. This thing is much slower, much older. It's only 200 kilometers an hour.
Yuck!
Which is for 120 miles an hour.
For context, our fastest train in America, Brightline, averages 69. 69 miles an hour.
Dude, it only goes 69?
Yeah, that's the average that we got. That's our newest and best one.
Men weren't meant to go faster than 69, okay? 69 is where you top out at safe speed.
Yeah. Gives you time to think.
Gives you time to think and look at the scenery and enjoy life.
So we decided to take the slow one, the 200 kilometer an hour, because that way we could do a sleeper car where we all get in beds and we could do it overnight and it'd be 14 hours instead of 10 if we had done the faster one. And then we get to the station at 6:30.
So yeah, we pulled up to the largest train station I've ever seen in my goddamn life. We go through the security where you have to show your passport, and I do show it. And then I get through, and between walking from one end to the other, we had the last train car. We were at the very end of the thing. Somewhere in that gap, I lost my passport. And so we were trying to board the train and everyone is through the security and I am not, and I can't find it. And so I sprint full speed back through the largest train station I've ever been through in my life, sweating through my shirt with our interpreter. I get to the front. I ask them for my passport. They don't understand a word of what. The interpreter's not caught up to me yet, so it's just me. Nobody understands what I'm saying. I can't get my passport. I'm freaking out. She finally catches up. We talk to people. They say there's a lost and found, but it's outside of the train station in a basement. And like, if you leave, you can't get back in without your passport. So I'm freaking out. We do go out there. We go to the basement. They're like,
and it's a run because the station is so big. So to get outside of it all the way out around and then down.
Just sweating and running. And there's a lot of people there. So we get there and they're like, anyway, they found it. The lost and found has it in a different area. Someone returned it, thank God. But we already missed our train. So we get back to our spot and I think we're cooked. I mean, I'm very happy that we found it because otherwise it's go find another passport, go to the embassy.
So bad.
It would have ruined the trip.
So bad. You need your passport for everything here. For everything. Getting on a train, going to a hotel, fucking going to a spa. You need it for everything.
It would have been quite a disaster. But thankfully they have it, so we get it. And I think we're probably cooked. We're going to have to get a flight. We're going to have to do something else. They go, okay, you can get on the faster 300 kilometer an hour super train. Speed past your other train and catch up to your original tickets on the first ride, which is crazy and awesome that they suggested it. And so we go, yeah. So we get on a later train. Oh, between we should tell. I gotta tell this story because this is fucking funny. I've been carrying around a basketball. All right. You can talk about whether this is a good thing or a bad thing in a whole different podcast. They'll have a separate Patreon.
Hey, think about this at home while you're listening to this. Say you're on a trip with some of your best friends.
Yeah.
And one of them, you have a small group, one of them goes to a store. He buys a basketball at the beginning of the trip and begins to carry around and bounce said basketball everywhere you go for the rest of the trip. How would you feel about that?
You guys are being so...
Dude, you're a terrorist.
If you were in Boston, you just live in Boston, and a Chinese guy's dribbling a basketball, you don't go, oh my God, this guy, what a crazy tourist with his basketball. Nobody cared.
Okay, hold on.
Think about this. 1,000-year-old temple.
Think about this.
And you were bouncing a basketball.
I was balling. First of all, let's be clear.
I wasn't
bouncing a basketball. I had handles like nobody's business.
Imagine if we went back to Boston and in Boston, there's no Asian people. And then the first Chinese guy that's showed up in like a couple weeks rolls up and he's dribbling the basketball.
We were not the first white guys in Shanghai.
No, that's not my point. That's not my point. It's not my point.
It's the groundwork for future white basketball players.
It's the idea that you obviously stand out already.
Yeah.
You represent something. It's like you're clearly a foreigner. So
Literally, every Chinese person who talked about me has made conversation about basketball. Some guy talked to me about Kobe today.
Maybe it's fine.
I think
maybe
it's fine.
Do you mean the one in the basketball court?
Did you tell him what's Chinese Google again? Baidu. I wonder what happens if you type in Kobe, Colorado. on Baidu.
I did not tell him to look up Kobe's history, but he did tell me he likes Kobe Bryant. Anyway, so here's where the basketball comes into play, other than them not happy with it. We are waiting for our second train. And by the way, I do feel like shit because I have my passport and we have people who had to wait on me, and I just felt bad. So I walk away from the group into an open area, and I'm just dribbling my basketball
in the middle of the station.
Alone and sad.
In the middle of the station.
There are thousands of people around.
Literally nobody else is caring or looking, but you guys are buttoned up and freaking out. But okay, I'm dribbling the basketball.
No one else is caring except the fucking military official.
This is where it gets weird.
Okay.
So a guy strolls up in an outfit that even our interpreter has not seen. This is not a normal station outfit. He is wearing like a military colonel's hat. He looks like he's part of the CCP military. And
he's also tall. He's tall. He's just like 6'5".
An extremely stern face, like a naturally resting stern face. Yeah. He walks up to me like confidently and points at, turns out not my basketball, but it looks like he's pointing right at my basketball. And then he points over to the area, and then, then he turns into the crowd, like over far from me, but in the stage, and he points at Aiden. And Aiden's face is the funniest face I've ever seen. Aiden goes a pure look of horror, number one, and I don't know this guy. I've never met him.
I did not do that. I did not do that.
He was trying to sell me out and throw me under the bus, bro.
Think about this. Think about this. Your white friend in the middle of this train station in the middle of China is bouncing a basketball, and the scariest looking man you've ever seen walks up to him, motions, and then from across the room locks eyes with me, points at me, and then points away like "come with me." And in that moment, I am thinking, "Oh, Brandon's basketball has just sent me to prison."
And by the way, I'm also kind of freaking out because this guy's face, I swear to God, this guy's face is not, I smile at him like, hey, what's up? Stern. Like,
does not smile back.
Did you mention Kobe? Did you mention the Lakers?
Kobe Bryant.
I was so mad. So that's some of the most mad I've ever been.
And I look over at Aiden and I'm trying to tell him to get our interpreter, but he is like trying to run away from me and pretend he never heard me.
No, okay, this is why it was such a disaster, is because Stefik wasn't around.
Yeah.
Stefik, Perry, and Doug are off in a different part of the terminal.
So we each individually came back and then were motioned by this guy from across the entire train station.
And
so I'm like, get Stefik, and I don't know. And then I'm getting pulled over by this guy, and he pulls me away from everyone else to a passport reader, and he like points at it. And again, I think, and it's like next to a gate leading off into nowhere. I think I'm being pulled away. It does feel like that. And then I realize what's going on, which is just that he's trying to help us get on our train, and he's just doing a nice thing. He just hasn't really
he just wants us to, in advance, scan our passport because he knows it's going to be a little slower for us, and we'll just get it done. It was great.
Yeah, it was actually very nice of him. But so we get scanned, and but every single person in our group has to individually be kind of freaked out because they keep coming in.
Because it's one at a time.
One at a time.
And then at least two of us are looking concerned near this tall military guy.
Also, this is not a normal thing because I also looked at the faces of
bouncing a basketball in the middle of a train terminal is not a normal thing.
Regular Chinese people around. No, they were not worried about the basketball. They did think something was going on. Like they also looked a little bit like, what the hell's happening? So anyway, we did get on our speedy train. We caught up, which I think is just cool. I think it's just incredibly cool.
It's like a moment in a movie. It's like we missed our train, so we just got on the faster one and caught up to it.
We caught up to it, and
we caught up to a 200-kilometer-hour train.
No, with the 300-kilometer-hour train.
Got there 30 minutes before we had time to kill. That's why you were bouncing the basketball. It's like we were bored waiting for the slow ass train to catch up.
If only their trains were slower, I wouldn't be bouncing the basketball.
One thing about the trains, and I've noticed a lot of the like buildings and infrastructure here in general, is we're on this incredible 300-kilometer train catching up to that one, right? And on that train, the inside of it is honestly not super nice. And I don't mean this as a big critique.
Oh, yeah.
I think there's a theme across what I'm seeing of the projects or buildings or infrastructure here where I'm not on the nicest subway you've ever seen or the nicest high-speed rail you've ever seen or the best bus you've ever seen, but they exist and they work and they serve their purpose. And I feel like that is a theme of the buildings and infrastructure specifically.
I've had that thought many times. In fact, even you guys said Shanghai was incredibly clean. I thought Shanghai was a very clean city compared to Los Angeles, for example. But I thought Tokyo is significantly cleaner. But what I got from Shanghai is that like everything is just functional and works. That's what I did not get the sense of like it was insane. It was like off the charts on any one metric. It was just that they've got all the stuff you need for a functional modern city that serves a lot of people. I don't know. That is the impressive part, is they've gotten all the roadblocks out of the way to like get the majority of people moving and doing things, and things are relatively very clean.
Consumer electronics or consumer stuff.
I would say that's
where you're like, when we went to the Huawei store and saw their trifold phone. You bought your Huawei earbud things. We're seeing these cars that are just like mind blowing. So it's consumer tech. It is just like
consumer tech, robotics,
so much
EVs.
Farther than we have.
There's definitely cutting edge on that.
The difference I would describe is if you've been to a city like Amsterdam or Utrecht or I don't know, like Zurich or something, I feel like the things are nicer there. And in Chengdu, like there's still huge intersections. There's still a lot of like traffic. It's not like you're watching this perfectly designed like Dutch city you saw on some YouTube video, but everything just gets the job done. It's so sick.
You guys want to hear some fun train stats?
Yeah, fuck yeah.
So, we talk all about this high-speed rail stuff. So I was looking into how exactly did it grow to this point, right? So we talked to this guy on the train, again, who slept in your guys' car. And then in the morning, Stevik and I were sitting out in like the hallway, and he just struck up a conversation. We talked about a bunch of stuff. The highway system is like clearly a point of national pride, right? And he's talking about how he takes it every week for work, that tons of people do. And you take it all the time for trips. Like you just do a day trip, because 1 hour on a high-speed rail, it's the equivalent. You can go to Los Angeles to San Diego in 40 minutes in 300 kilometers. You can go LA to San Francisco in 2 hours, New York City to Miami in 6.5. The amount of area that you can visit in like an hour is just like massively expanded. I was like, oh, in California, we're 18 years into our train. We haven't built any yet. He said, that demonstrates incompetence. I think was the word he said. Yeah. He was just like laughing at us like, oh, you're very incompetent. Okay. So quick history of the Chinese rail. Basically none that was really, coherent or usable or connected through the end of World War II, just because Civil War, like colonial powers are doing stuff, all these different problems. There was some, but not a ton. So then Mao comes in, they do a giant build out, and they actually get up to 33,000 miles of railway by 1978. Which is huge. That's a lot. And I'll give some exact numbers later. But then in the kind of like modern reform era, they keep adding until 1997. They get to 44,000 miles. And then basically from 1997 to 2007, they start doing these nationwide campaigns to speed up all the rail. So they're like going to the existing railway infrastructure and upgrading it. They do speed up campaigns. And so they start getting the trains to go like 100 to 120 miles an hour on their upgraded track. This is like by 2007, right? This is 20 years ago. And then over the past 20 years, right as the Great Recession hits, they do massive subsidies and start pouring tons of money into national infrastructure. So then it just skyrockets. So in 2007, they're like 48,000 miles, and they have 400 miles of dedicated high-speed rail. 3 years later, they have an additional 9,000 miles of track with 5,000 miles of high-speed rail. By 2017, it's 81,000 miles, 17,000 of which are high-speed rail. And now 2023, like a late concrete number, over 100,000 miles of track with 28,000 miles of high-speed rail track, which is more than the entire rest of the world combined. So just to give you a sense, the last 40, 50 years, they went from 33,000 miles of okay infrastructure track that's slow to now 100,000 with 28 of high-speed rail. US, by comparison, we actually have a shitload of railway. I didn't know that. We had 250,000 miles in 1916. That's just because it was like all over the place. And it's actually gone down.
Pioneers in rail back when rail was early.
Yeah. And
1800s.
Then basically from 1916 onwards, it's just been plummeting. And so now 2023, by comparison, again, China has 100,000 miles with 28 28,000 of which are high-speed rail. We have 137 miles of track, but zero high-speed rail, and that's basically all freight. That's not like really passenger line. We have Amtrak, kind of, which is in America, that's the line you use if you want to get somewhere as a passenger. But even then, they're renting the freight line. So it's a bunch of private companies running freight track rather than, what's happening here where, the Chinese government is managing the whole thing. Numbers by comparison, Japan has 15,000 miles of conventional track, 1,800 miles of Shinkansen. Japan is so famous for the Shinkansen and the high-speed rail, and it's 1.8 thousand miles of high-speed rail. Wow. China has more than 15 times the amount of high-speed rail. That's been happening over the last 40 years that they've just outbuilt. France has 18,000 miles total with 1,700 miles of high-speed rail. Spain is doing pretty solid. They have 9,600 miles and 1,800 of which is high-speed rail. So there are like these periods in Chinese history, and it's particularly from 1997 to 2007, they started expanding infrastructure. And then since Great Recession, they're like, we are massively investing in this, and they've just gone absolutely fucking crazy. So history is nuts. And now it's like a flywheel, right? Like if you have this much of your economy and system that is able to build this with that level of expertise, like it just keeps speeding up, right? Like it gets cheaper. And of course, very notable thing, you don't have to do land acquisition battles. You don't have to deal with local governments. You don't have to do budget fights and legislation. You don't have environmental law review stuff. You can just build.
You just chop through
which is the obvious caveat to all of this, which is that there is not like stakeholders around the country who get to like really talk about it. But
I think the barriers are different.
Any one of those things individually, you could argue is a good idea. And we did it in America. But when you add them all up, you end up what we have, which is so much red tape has choked our ability to build things on grand projects. So clearly there's a problem. I will say, I don't know the specifics on my understanding is you do get paid a market rate. If you have land that is in the way of a project here in China, they just pay you. But you have to take the payout.
Yeah.
There is no option. You get paid out. And so you can make the argument that somebody lost their grandfather's farm or whatever, but this is what they do to build gigantic projects that get done on time, and they're good at it. And so it's trade-offs that people should think about more in America is maybe we need some of that, or at least to cut back on some of the regulations we put in place on those areas, because
anybody can stop
everybody
everything.
can lawsuit, stop it. And so, it's interesting. What else?